Hello, everyone. Back then, millions of American families ended their nights hearing those simple goodnights through the television, almost as if the Waltons was part of their own home. But time never stands still. The children grew old, the parents and grandparents slowly faded away, and some are gone forever. Once a symbol of life, hope, and survival through war and hardship, the Waltons now reminds us of a painful truth. Even the most beautiful memories must one day face goodbye. Zebulon Walton, portrayed by Will Geer at the age of 70, became the irreplaceable soul of the Waltons. Zeb was far more than an old man telling stories on the porch. He was the root of the entire Walton family, a man shaped by the mountains of Virginia, by hard land, war, and years of poverty, carrying the wisdom of an older America into every generation after him. As the father of John Walton Sr., the husband of Esther Walton, and the emotional anchor for John Boy and the children, Zeb stood as the final symbol of the old world. A man who understood nature, human struggle, and the quiet sorrow hidden beneath ordinary life. His presence gave the family its deepest sense of stability, tradition, and memory. Will Geer was born on March 9, 1902, in Frankfort, Indiana, under his full name William Aug Geer. During the 1950s, his career was nearly destroyed when Hollywood blacklisted him for his political beliefs and for refusing to cooperate during anti-communist investigations. It was one of the darkest chapters of his life, forcing him away from mainstream work for years. Yet he returned and found one of the most meaningful roles of his career in Zeb Walton. On April 22, 1978, Will Geer passed away at the age of 76 from respiratory failure after years of declining health and lung complications, leaving behind a legacy deeply tied to one of America's most beloved television families. Esther Walton, portrayed by Ellen Corby at the age of 61, became one of the most profound grandmother figures in American television history through the Waltons. Esther was far more than the woman beside Zebulon Walton. She was the true heart of the household, the quiet force holding the family together through hardship. As the mother of John Walton Sr. and grandmother to John Boy and the younger children, Esther carried both warmth and unshakable strength. Shaped by years of war, poverty, and survival, she cooked, cared, comforted, and healed the emotional wounds the men in the family often could not speak aloud. Her presence gave the Walton home its deepest sense of love, faith, and endurance. Ellen Corby was born on June 3, 1911, in Racine, Wisconsin, under her birth name Ellen Hansen. Long before becoming Esther Walton, she built a respected career as a character actress known for bringing honesty and emotional depth to every role. In her later years, she lived quietly and stayed away from the spotlight. On April 14, 1999, Ellen Corby passed away at the age of 87 at the motion picture of a television country house and hospital in California, after suffering another stroke and ongoing heart complications, closing the chapter on a career that left a lasting mark on generations of television viewers. John Walton Sr., portrayed by Ralph Waite at the age of 44, brought to the Waltons the image of the classic American father, but with remarkable depth and quiet pain. As the eldest son of Zeb and Esther, John carried the weight of the entire family on his shoulders through his sawmill and endless physical labor. As Olivia's husband and father of 7 children, he lived under constant pressure from poverty, war, and the responsibility of keeping his family together through hard times. John was a man of few words, expressing love through sacrifice and action, while privately struggling with the tension between his own dreams and the duties life demanded of him. That inner conflict gave the character a realism that resonated deeply with audiences. Ralph Waite was born on June 22, 1928, in White Plains, New York, and lived one of the most unusual journeys before entering Hollywood. He served in the Marine Corps, worked as a social worker, and even became a minister before finding his true calling in acting. His personal life was far from easy, marked by 3 marriages and a long struggle with alcoholism in his younger years. On February 13, 2014, Ralph Waite passed away at the age of 85 in Palm Desert, California, due to age-related complications, including physical decline and long-term heart problems, leaving behind the legacy of one of television's most unforgettable fathers. Ike Godsey, portrayed by Joe Conley at the age of 44, brought a quiet but essential sense of community to the Waltons. Ike was the owner of the town's only general store, the kind of man who seemed to know every secret in the valley. As a longtime friend of John Walton Sr. and the husband of Corabeth, Ike was far more than a shopkeeper. His store was where news spread, conflicts began, and sometimes where they were settled. Gentle, honest, and often a little awkward, Ike frequently found himself caught between Corabeth's ambitions and his own simple nature. That balance made him one of the most grounded and relatable figures in the series, a symbol of small-town loyalty and everyday life. Joe Conley was born on March 3, 1928, in Buffalo, New York, and spent many years building a steady career in television before finding his defining role. Long before the Waltons, he appeared in dozens of supporting roles, quietly earning respect in the industry. After leaving the screen, he lived a private life, focused on family and real estate investments. Free from major scandals, Conley was remembered by colleagues as deeply humble and loyal to his craft. On July 7, 2013, he passed away at the age of 85 in Newbury Park, California, following complications from dementia, closing the life of an actor whose quiet presence became part of America's television memory. Corabeth Godsey, portrayed by Ronnie Claire Edwards at the age of 39, brought one of the most colorful and often divisive personalities into the Waltons. As Ike Godsey's wife, Corabeth was a woman who constantly dreamed of a life beyond the small mountain town, always believing she was meant for something bigger. Unlike the simple, grounded Walton family, Corabeth represented ambition, social competition, and the fear of being left behind. She often clashed with Esther, her neighbors, and even Ike himself, creating some of the show's most memorable tensions. Yet beneath her dramatic personality and constant desire for status was a deep insecurity about her own worth, which gave the character surprising emotional depth and made her far more human than she first appeared. Ronnie Claire Edwards was born on February 9, 1933, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and began her career on stage before moving into television. Beyond acting, she was also a writer and a strong supporter of community arts. In her later years, she battled chronic lung disease but remained optimistic and continued writing for as long as she could. On June 14, 2016, Ronnie Claire Edwards passed away at the age of 83 in Dallas, Texas, from complications related to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, leaving behind the memory of an actress who gave Corabeth both fire and fragility. John Boy Walton, portrayed by Richard Thomas at the age of 21, became the storytelling soul of the Waltons and the emotional center of the entire family. As the eldest son of John and Olivia, John Boy was more than just a brother. He was the eyes and memory of the Walton family, the one who carried their joys, struggles, and heartbreaks through a changing America shaped by the Great Depression and war. A young man deeply in love with literature, always carrying a notebook and dreaming of becoming a writer, John Boy constantly wrestled with the pull between family duty and the desire to step beyond the mountains where he was born. That inner conflict made him one of the most relatable coming-of-age characters of his time. Richard Thomas was born on June 13, 1951, in Manhattan, New York, and grew up in an artistic household, with both parents working as respected ballet dancers. After his defining success as John Boy, he built a long and steady career across Broadway, television, and film, earning admiration as one of the most respected actors of his generation. Now at 75, Richard Thomas continues working in the arts, while enjoying a quieter life centered around reading, gardening, and spending time with his family. Olivia Walton, portrayed by Michael Learned at the age of 33, became one of the most unforgettable mother figures in the Waltons. As the wife of John Walton Sr. and mother of 7 children, Olivia was the quiet force that kept the family's heart beating through war, poverty, and endless uncertainty. If John carried the physical burden of survival, Olivia carried the emotional weight of holding everyone together. She was the first to wake each morning and the last to rest at night, mending clothes, preparing meals, caring for the sick, and easing the tensions that rose inside a crowded home. Her warmth, patience, and strength made her the emotional soul of the Walton family. Michael Learned was born on April 9, 1939 in Washington, D.C., and her real life carried far more struggle than the gentle image audiences saw on screen. She married young, endured several failed marriages, and spent years battling alcoholism before finding stability later in life. After her celebrated role as Olivia, Learned continued a respected career in television and theater, earning admiration for her emotional depth and resilience. Now at 87, she occasionally appears at nostalgic fan events, living a quiet life filled with painting, caring for her dogs, and tending to her small garden in California. Jason Walton, portrayed by John Walmsley at the age of 16, brought to the Waltons the image of the family's most sensitive and artistic son, a young man who tried to understand the world through music. As the second son and younger brother of John Boy, Jason often lived in his brother's shadow, yet his path was very different. While John Boy wrote stories, Jason turned to music to find his own voice. Dreamy, emotional, and often carrying his guitar like a shield, he used music as an escape from family pressures and the uncertainty of the times. But Jason's journey was far from easy. He fought for his father's acceptance of his artistic ambitions, faced sibling rivalries, early failures, and the heartbreaks that came with growing up. His story gave the series a softer, deeply personal rhythm. John Walmsley was born on February 6, 1956, in Blackburn, Lancashire, England, and remains one of the few cast members who successfully balanced acting with a lifelong music career. After the Waltons, he shifted much of his focus towards songwriting, performing, and music production, collaborating with several major artists over the years. Now at 70, Walmsley lives a simple and creative life, still devoted to playing guitar, writing music at home, and taking part in television reunion and nostalgia events. Mary Ellen Walton, portrayed by Judy Norton at the age of 14, brought a rare fire and rebellious spirit into the Waltons. As the oldest daughter in the Walton family, Mary Ellen was intelligent, stubborn, and determined to break free from the traditional expectations placed on women of her time. From an early age, she dreamed of becoming a nurse and later a doctor, an ambitious path in an era when women were rarely encouraged to pursue such careers. Her fierce independence often led to clashes with her father, but it was also what made her one of the most compassionate members of the family, especially when facing illness, loss, and the realities of war. Mary Ellen represented the changing role of women in America, carrying both strength and tenderness in equal measure. Judy Norton was born on January 29, 1958, in Santa Monica, California, and became one of the standout child stars of the 1970s. After the Waltons ended, she struggled for years to step out of the shadow of Mary Ellen, exploring independent films, theater, and directing, though success did not always come easily. That long journey shaped her into a resilient artist with a deep connection to her audience. Now at 68, Judy Norton continues to work in the arts, hosting podcasts, writing books, and regularly meeting fans at nostalgia events where the memories of the Waltons still live on. Ben Walton, portrayed by Eric Scott at the age of 13, brought the fiercest and most restless energy into the Waltons. Ben was the son who seemed to burn hotter than the rest, impulsive, quick-tempered, and driven by an endless need to prove himself to his father, his brothers, and the world beyond Walton's Mountain. If John Boy represented intellect and Jason carried emotion, Ben embodied strength and survival instinct. From a young age, he was pulled into the hard realities of sawmill work, farming, and delivery runs, forcing him to grow up faster than most children his age. That raw determination made Ben one of the most dynamic and unpredictable members of the family. Eric Scott was born on October 20, 1958, in Los Angeles, California, and entered the entertainment world very early, essentially growing up alongside the character of Ben. After leaving television, rather than chasing the fading spotlight of Hollywood, Scott chose a very different path. He moved into the transportation business and built a successful delivery company of his own. Now at 67, he lives a private and grounded life, enjoying long drives, fishing, and spending time with his children and grandchildren, far from the world that once made him a familiar face in American homes. Aaron Walton, portrayed by Mary Elizabeth McDonough at the age of 11, became one of the most delicate and emotionally layered figures in the Waltons. Erin was the family's most strikingly beautiful daughter, gentle, deeply emotional, and often lost in romantic dreams of love, the future, and a world far beyond Waltons Mountain. But beneath that soft exterior was a heart far more fragile than it seemed. Erin often carried some of the deepest heartbreaks in the family, from broken romances to the endless waiting brought by war, and the painful feeling of being left behind as her brothers and sisters slowly moved on with their lives. Her journey captured the quiet sorrow of growing up and longing for more than life seemed willing to give. Mary Elizabeth McDonough was born on May 4, 1961, in Van Nuys, California, and grew up before America's eyes as part of one of television's most beloved families. In the years that followed, her life became a far more difficult battle than anything written into the series. She faced lupus and later breast cancer, experiences that reshaped her path completely. After recovering, McDonough became an advocate for women's health awareness, writing books and offering hope to countless cancer survivors. Now at 65 in 2026, she lives a peaceful life centered on writing, caring for animals, and supporting community causes, carrying forward the same quiet strength that once defined Erin Walton. Elizabeth Walton, portrayed by Kami Cotler at the age of 7, represented the purest form of innocence and hope in the Waltons. As the youngest child in the Walton family, Elizabeth was often the smallest presence in the room, yet she witnessed many of the family's greatest joys and deepest sorrows through wide, innocent eyes. Growing up surrounded by stories of war, hardship, and separation, she remained a quiet reminder that the future still existed beyond pain. Elizabeth shared especially meaningful bonds with her grandfather Zeb, who taught her about roots and tradition, and with John Boy, who fed her imagination with stories and dreams. Through her, the series often preserved its gentlest sense of wonder. Kami Cotler was born on June 17, 1965, in Long Beach, California, and made a very different choice after her years in the spotlight. Instead of staying in Hollywood, she stepped away from acting at a young age and chose a path in education. Over the years, Cotler became a teacher, later a school principal, and an advocate for children's education, building a life far from celebrity but rich with purpose. Now at 61, she remains active in the world of education, with a deep love for books, nature, and speaking at conferences focused on children and learning. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this journey. Time may fade the years, but the memories and the legends they gave us never truly disappear. The faces may grow older, some may be gone, but their stories still live on in the hearts of those who remember. Until we meet again in the next journey of remembrance.